On February the 5th of 2019, Michael Cochran was a 200-pound, healthy 38-year-old man. By midday of February 6th of 2019, he had lost consciousness and he would never regain consciousness. He died in hospice care 5 days later, February 11th of 2019. How could this happen? Why did it happen? For an answer to that, look no further than this defendant's conduct. As you were told, the state has no direct evidence, the kind of stuff that makes TV shows exciting, the kind of stuff prosecutors love, jurors love. There is no DNA. There is no evidence of fingerprints. There are no videos of what happened. But as Judge Kirkpatrick will instruct you at the end of this, circumstantial evidence is just as valid as that type of direct and scientific evidence. And there is a ton of evidence of this defendant's guilt. All circumstantial. So how did this happen? How did this healthy 38-year-old man go into a state of unconsciousness and never come back from that? On the morning of February 6th of 2019, this defendant advised her friend and neighbor, Jennifer Davis, that she had been sick all night, 103-degree temperature. And she had previously advised that she had cancer and was under chemo treatment. And that chemo treatment, the effects of which were somewhat negated by insulin. There were no diabetics in the Cochran house. And there's no evidence that this defendant was taking insulin to counteract anything. But Jennifer Davis, being a good friend and the mother of a child who was a severe diabetic, had insulin. The defendant knew that. Jennifer Davis, being a good friend, sends her husband with insulin to the defendant's house that morning. About noonish, one way or the other, Michael Cochran collapses in the Cochran house kitchen. Now, the defendant gives various versions of what she saw, what she heard, and what she did, but there's no question that he was unconscious by about 12:20 or so. How do we know that? She took a picture of him and sent that picture to a number of people, showing him in a collapsed state in their kitchen. Did she call 911? No. Did she load him into a car and take him to the yard? No. What did she do? She called 2 construction guys that worked for her. They took Michael Cochran from the kitchen floor and put him on the couch, where he would remain for the rest of the day, some at least 6 hours or so. That's an unusual reaction for somebody to take with their spouse. She did, in addition to calling the construction workers, you'll hear from him, Jason Bowen, who helped move Mr. Cochran to the couch. She called a trooper friend of theirs, J.D. Hamilton. J.D. Hamilton came to the Cochran residence. He saw Michael on the couch. Michael was not conscious, and he was concerned. J.D. Hamilton is married to Stephanie Hamilton, and she is a physician's assistant. They get some medical attention. Stephanie Hamilton came to the house. She looks at Michael Cochran, and she tells her he needs to be checked. Did the defendant do that? No. Let him lay on the couch. Roughly 3 hours later, things have deteriorated to the point where Michael loses control of his bladder and urinates on himself. Did that event trigger any action by the defendant? Did it seek medical care for her husband, who's on the couch and unconscious now for a number of hours? No. She and her sister changed his clothes and left him on the couch. By 6-ish or so that evening, Michael's best friend, Chris Davis, comes to the house. Chris Davis takes charge. He says, we're going to the hospital. The defense says, oh, he don't want to go, he don't want to go. Of course, nobody could ask him because he was unconscious. But Chris Davis says, we're taking him to the hospital. They do. They go to Raleigh General Hospital. But the damage has been done. You'll hear from a couple of doctors to explain the significance, but for now, just keep these numbers in mind. According to the defendant, Michael Cochran's blood glucose level was in the 140s during the day. He reports that to a couple people. He gets to Raleigh General Hospital, and it was 21. 21. That may mean nothing to you right now, but keep that number in mind. Now, Michael Cochran's mom was 10 minutes from his house. She's a retired, registered nurse. Did the defendant contact her? Oh, she did. About 10 o'clock that night by text saying, they're going to have to take Michael from Raleigh General to CAMC. All the opportunities to get help to this man, and she took none of them. After being in CAMC for a few days, he's transferred to hospice. He's there roughly 5 hours and dies. His cause of death was damage to his brain caused by insulin. You'll know that because a couple of doctors will testify. A Dr. Uribe and a Dr. Krieger will tell you how the effects of insulin basically destroyed this man's brain. Glenda Epperly, an experienced RN and a hospice nurse, said she had never seen a body come out of hospice that looked so good. This was a healthy man until she did him in. Now that answers the how. Why? Why would this happen? And why would it happen when it happened? Well, as the defense counsel informed you during questioning, the defendant had run a Ponzi scheme, a big one, where millions of dollars were taken from friends, relatives, local professionals. As many deceptions and lies as were told to her victims of the Ponzi scheme, Michael Cochran was told just as many. He did not know what was going on, but he was determined to find out, because people were saying, hey, we invested in your company in this plan, and we're not getting our money back. And he was frustrated. He was very frustrated. But the same excuses provided by the defendant to all of her victims in the Ponzi scheme were being provided to Michael Cochran too. It's everybody's fault under the sun. They've got hundreds of millions of dollars in their money stuck in a bank in Virginia, Bank of America. That's what she told Michael Cochran. That's what he believed. So Michael Cochran is going to straighten this out. They charter a flight from Beckley to the Bank of America branch in Lynchburg, Virginia for the 6th of February, 2019. Mysteriously, the defendant cancels that trip in early morning hours. Why was that trip so important? Because Michael Cochran and everybody else would know at that point. There is no money in the Bank of America in Virginia. There's never been any money in the Bank of America in Virginia. There are no government contracts, which is what she was selling to the most of Raleigh County, it seems like. Those were fictitious things that she made up and built millions of dollars out of her victims. Now, we're not going to pretend Michael Cochran didn't get a benefit from this. He did. The defendant and her family lived a very lavish lifestyle with other people's money. And Trooper Heinzman will explain to you in an overview, because this case isn't the Ponzi scheme case. That one's over. This is the Werner case. But he'll explain to you how the defendant did this and how she was able to pull this off for so long and how she got so many people to forfeit their money to her. That was all going to blow up on February 6th. And it would have been over February 6th. But of course, the Cochrans never made it from Beckley to Lynchburg. And Michael Cochran is dead because of this. By the way, in case you've forgotten from some of your questioning, this defendant is a pharmacist. She knows about medications and drugs. Beyond that, she held herself out as a specialist in diabetic counseling. She knew the impact insulin would make. That's our case. All circumstantial, and at the end of it, we'll be asking you to find the right verdict and find this defendant guilty of first-degree murder. Thank you.
Mr. Victor?
May it please the court,